Hey, today I wanted to talk about how I approached insomnia, my situation, my circumstances, and how I, in some ways, was able to deal with it. And eventually, I think I'm at a point where I can say that I've overcome it. And to start off, as a disclaimer, I am by no means a medical professional. I'm just speaking based off my experience, so please take everything with a grain of salt. So let's begin in some little storytelling. In COVID times, I went through a period of time where I couldn't sleep for, I'd say, solid 3-4 months, right? I went to get help. I went to my family doctor, who prescribed me with sleeping pills. I took that. It definitely helped me sleep when I did take the pills, but I found that, it was definitely not a sustainable option. And when I did not take the pills, it didn't do anything, obviously. And when I did take the pills, I found that it only lasts for, 4 or 5 hours or whatnot for the duration of time I did take the pills. And based on my research online, I learned that, you could get dependent on those pills. So I decided to just stop taking it because I wasn't even benefiting that much in terms of sleeping quality wise from it, and I wasn't getting that many hours from it as well. So I decided to just tackle it full on in some sense. But to get a better idea of how to approach this, I did reach out and got a sleep therapist, right? So a sleep therapist, essentially it was virtual because this was during the pandemic times. So we would meet, I think it was once a week on Zoom, virtual consultations. And some of the advice I still remember that he gave me was to set a strict bed routine time. Ideally, same sleeping time and same wake up time. But because I have insomnia, the time that I fall asleep, I might not be able to control, right? But what I control is what time I get out of my bed. So he was telling me that being consistent in that aspect was the most important. So that was the first tip. Second tip he told me was to treat the bedroom, especially the bed, as a place where you only go when you want to sleep, right? And so instead of laying on your bed throughout the day, only utilize your bed and lay on your bed when it's time to go to sleep. And he was explaining it to me like your mind can associate your bed to become like a working place. Because if you're in your bed the whole day, like working or just like on your phone and doing stuff, it might not associate it with like a place where you're going for rest. So best to keep it, as a spot where you're just meant to be resting. So a good tip, I guess, that he told me is that if you're not able to fall asleep, don't lay in bed. If it's more than like say 15-20 minutes, get up, get out of your bed. You can in my case, I found what was effective even was just sitting on my bed was better than laying on my bed, right? Sit on my bed, focusing on my breathing, or just standing up, doing some other things, just to kind of retry the process later when you're feeling more tired, right? Because you can't force sleep. What I learned and what I was told is definitely like if I keep laying there, honestly the chances of me falling asleep is probably lower than if I were to get up, do something, and then retry it again. Because by laying there, my mind just racing, and I'm laying there, so I'm in a way getting rest, so I'm not getting tired either, in my personal experience. So it's pretty bad in that sense. So what I like to do is definitely well, what works for me, even though it was not advised to do so, is I'll sometimes just use my phone, watch some stuff that alleviates my mind, right? Like watch some funny videos, or watch some boring documentaries, or whatever in the case it might be. Just nothing too stimulating where you really have to use your mind to think about things, because that way you'll be able to relax your mind, right? So definitely that works for me, but I was told that you should avoid devices because it emits blue light, which can reduce the quality of your sleep. So another alternative would be to read a book, which is could also work. But personally for me, I feel like it's less thinking for me to just open up like a video and just watch it, instead of me having to think about the words really deeply. Just because how I read, I'm like not a great reader in that sense. I have to really think about the words, and this just stimulates my head a lot, right? And I guess the third tip I have here is I used to have an alarm clock by my bedside that set a time, and during the time period where I couldn't sleep, I would always just keep looking at that alarm clock. Every like minute or so, I'll be just like counting down, like, oh my goodness, it's another 5 minutes and I'm still not asleep. Oh my goodness, it's another 1 hour and I'm still not asleep. Oh my goodness, if I don't sleep now, I'm gonna get like 4 hours of sleep, right? So what I was advised to do, and based on my personal experience, I feel like this also helps, is to face away the alarm clock, or just simply get rid of the visible alarm clock, right? Because at that point, when you're looking at time, it's doing more harm than good, right? And another tip that I was told, that I learned, and I feel like also helps me, myself, personally, is if I have a lot of thoughts at the end of the night, first of all, before going to bed, for example, if I go to bed at 12, try to just shut down and don't do anything intensive that requires a lot of thinking, perhaps like 1 or 2 hours beforehand, so your mind is kind of getting ready for bed. Because I feel like, for me, I fall into this situation where if I use my brain a lot, if I'm really thinking, working a lot until, for example, like 11:30, and I try to get to bed by 12, there's a good chance that I'm not going to be able to fall asleep until 1:30 or like perhaps even later, because my mind is still running. I have to wait for it to cool down. For my case, might not be your case. So just really allocating that time for your mind to cool down and just relax, not thinking about anything stressful, if you can, obviously. So that definitely helps. So I've listed some tips of some things that kind of help me deal with the issue of having troubles going to sleep. But for me, during this time period, honestly, all the tips that I listed could not have, well, it definitely helped a little bit, but it didn't solve my issue. What really solved my issue was simply time and addressing the underlying issue, especially for my case, because it was more so of like a short-term insomnia caused by external events, external traumatic events, issues that I was going on with in my life. Just being able to slowly resolve and address that issue, I felt like was the main thing that really helped with my with my insomnia, because my insomnia was a byproduct of this other issue, right? And because of that other issue, my mind was always like running, and no matter what I did, all these techniques, because the issue was not solved, or I could not, I could not address it properly. Perhaps there is no solution, but I just could not properly address the issue in my mind. It kept running. So throughout the day, and nights, my mind will be always active. So while I understand that my situation probably unique to me, if you're in a similar situation where you feel like you have a problem that is pretty much unsolvable, I'd say to reach out to, get help from, psychologists or friends and family, just someone, just being able to express it and get others' input. I feel like really helped me process it, the issue that I was dealing with, and just trusting that over time, even if there's no solution, I'll be able to handle it better if I'm actively putting in effort. And it's not going to be an overnight thing. I remember thinking like, man, this is like forever. I've been not able to sleep for months. Is this going to be me for the rest of my life? Am I an insomniac? And that was a really negative mindset for me, because it got to the point where I feel like it was not only my mind stimulating a lot throughout the day and night that was causing me not to be able to sleep, but it was also another introduced element of fear of not being able to sleep itself, causing essentially two issues now. Because I was fearful of not being able to sleep, and to be honest, I didn't even know why I was fearful, or I didn't even know the underlying reason why I was fearful. And that underlying reason was because of this, I guess, unaddressed or improperly addressed issue, which was resolved for me over time. So yeah, my advice would be like, if you are having trouble sleeping, maybe take a moment to really dig deeper and see if you're having, what is the root cause of you not being able to sleep, right? Is it because you're overthinking about something, or perhaps it's another issue? Can that issue be resolved, or how can it be better addressed so you can have a better night's sleep? I say that would be, I guess, the main key points, because all the tips I listed before help, but at the end of the day, if you have this huge issue that you can't get over and just keep running in your head, you're not going to be able to sleep well, right? I remember feeling completely hopeless when I couldn't sleep. I felt like a zombie. I just felt like I was thinking about really negative things. But I believe that if you put in the effort, if you just trust yourself, especially if you're in a similar situation like me, if you really just trust yourself, trust in the process of being able to let time really allow you to understand how to better process the situation, I feel like you'll be fine. Like, you'll be fine. It's just a matter of time. It took me, I'd say, over 8 months. It's definitely not a short-term thing if you're in a situation like me, but it'll eventually get better. And I know it's perhaps, quite tempting to just take sleeping pills. But personally, for me, if you have a similar issue for me, I guess the details might not be exactly the same, but if you are just going through a short period of time where insomnia is essentially new to you, it's not like you've been dealing with your whole life, that's probably a different case. Again, I'm not a medical professional, but I'd say to avoid the sleeping pills and just really tackle it, because I feel like that will lead you not only to be less dependent on the sleeping pills, which will lead you to be healthier, but also teach you, internal strength, because you'll be able to overcome something and solve an issue by yourself. And I feel like that's really rewarding, and it's turning a negative situation into a positive situation, which it's something that you can look back and even it is a negative time, right? It's something that perhaps you can look back and be grateful for because you have been able to, overcome such an obstacle. So those are my tips. I hope they're helpful. Again, not a medical professional, but I just want to share my input on the situation and how I dealt with it. Thanks for watching.